This week's Torah portion, Parshat Vayakhel, describes the giving of the people to build the Mishkan, the traveling tabernacle in the desert, and the beginning of the building of the tabernacle and the craftsmanship that went into it and all of its parts. So we're on Exodus chapter 35, verse 22. Vayavo ha'anashim al hanashim, the men came along with the women, or in addition to the women. Kol nadiv lev heviu, everyone who is generous of heart brought, and now it lists some of what they brought, of their jewelry. Chach v'nezem v'tabaat v'chumaz kol kli zahav. They brought armbands, nose rings, finger rings, and kumaz, all sorts of gold ornaments. V'chol ish asher henif tunafat zahav l'Hashem, and every man who raised up an offering of gold to God. So you might have heard that when I was translating the list of utensils, there was one word which I didn't translate, and that is the word kumaz. What is a kumaz? Says Rashi. Kumaz, kli zahavhu natun keneged oto makom leisha. A kumaz is a golden implement or a piece of golden jewelry placed over a woman's genitals. V'rabotenu pershu shem kumaz. Our rabbis explained the name kumaz as being an acronym. So it's kaf vav mem zayin, meaning kan, that's the kaf, makom, that's the mem, zima, that's the zayin. Here is a place of sexuality. So the word kumaz is an acronym for a utensil, for a piece of jewelry that women would wear over their genitals. Interesting, and that was given. All those things, the armbands, nose rings, finger rings, and these things called a kumaz, were all donated by men and women to for the gold in them for the building and usage in the tabernacle. The Maharal, the Gur Aryeh, is going to ask an interesting and maybe reasonable question. He asks, Makshim kan. There's a question here. Dekan kibel Moshe miyad. Here, Moshe accepts all of these things. Afal gav dehu kli shel oto makom. Even though this piece of jewelry was worn in a very intimate, private setting, in a way that was related, seemingly, for sexual purposes. Now, what exactly was this thing? The commentators are a little unclear, but it seems to be some sort of chastity belt that was related, but used in either sexual ways or sexual purposes, or in something in that sphere. V'ilu gabe marot hatzovot nistapek Moshe im yesh lo lekabel otam. Now, the Maharal here notes that later in the Parsha we're going to see that there is another utensil which was used in a sexual context, and this was the mirrors, the handheld mirrors that were donated and used to build the kior, the fountain, the hand-washing basin in the temple. Now, the mirrors which were donated were used, according to the Midrashim, were used by women, the Israelite women, to beautify themselves and to entice their husbands to sex. And this was seen as critical because the men, either because just of fatigue or out of a sort of cynical pessimism about their lives in slavery, did not want to sleep with their wives. And so this was seen as the possible end of the Jewish people, the Israelite people. And the women understood the value of procreation, the value of intimacy, the value of both intimacy and sexuality on its own, for its own value, and for the sake of procreation. Used the mirrors to beautify themselves. So Moshe, later, there's a very lengthy Rashi which describes this, and the importance of the mirrors, and ultimately Moshe's accepting them. But here, we're talking about something else that was used sexually, these kumazim, this maybe chastity belt or maybe something else, and there's no question. So why here does Moshe immediately accept them? There, nistapek Moshe im yesh lekabel otam. There, Moshe didn't know whether he should accept them. Mishum shenasim li'etzer hara, because they were used for this sexual purpose. V'yesh lomar dekanhu asoy l'shmirat min haznut. Chastity belts, says the Maharal, have the opposite meaning. They're specifically used to protect against sexual, maybe depravity, being for people to engage in sex and sexuality in a negative way. Shalot tizanahi isha, and specifically that women will not conduct themselves immorally. This maybe is taking on more of a patriarchal idea here. Ulakach ein bezeh hakli shum davar ganai, and therefore this utensil, the kומז, has no negative meaning at all. If anything, it's positive. Of all marot hatzovot, but the mirrors, which we're going to learn about later, ipcha hu dehem nasim liyetzar hara, they were specifically used to entice and lead towards sexual union. Lakach hayimistapek Moshe im yesh lo lekabel otam, and therefore Moshe didn't know whether or not he should accept them. So interesting here, the Maharal delving into what exactly the kומז was, and in so doing trying to understand a seeming contradiction between the verse here and the verse later in Parshat Vayakhel. Always a pleasure learning with you. More next week.